I personally do not like Melanotan. Melanotan 1 or Melanotan 2. For me. And I'll tell you why I don't like them. Maybe it won't apply to you. Maybe it's great for you. But this is for me. So melanotan comes from the alpha MSH hormone, which broadly is a stress chemical. It's an excitatory, stimulatory chemical. Now, melanotan, I think at one point, this has changed. The peptide I'm going to talk about after this is probably the most popular peptide now. But for a while, melanotan was the most popular peptide. Loads of people were taking it. I remember it was like on our mainstream TV over here in the UK. People were overdoing it. And that's because it's a peptide that really works, as many of them do. But unlike a lot of other ones, you can see the fact that it works. So what does it do? It stimulates melanin, which is the color pigment, right? So people do it to tan. It's as simple as that. Will it tan you if you literally do not get any sun? I think that's debated. I think the answer might be no. But the point is you'll get much more tanned from the sun that you do have contact with. And even if you're not sunbathing, just, if you're outside walking or whatever, right, any contact with the sun will stimulate a lot more tanning if you have melanotan than if you don't. Now, that's one reason it's so popular. The other reason it's so popular is because it was called the Barbie Doll Peptide, I think. And that's because, it's not famous for having 3 benefits. It would tan you, it would increase your sex drive, and it would reduce your appetite. Now, all of these are true, except for one to me, kind of. It definitely does tan you. However, there is such a thing as being too tanned. There is such a thing as having too much pigment. This is where you're more likely to get melanomas and various other issues. So I'm very wary about that. But to be honest, it's not the reason I don't take it. Another thing it's supposed to help with is sex drive. I say supposed to. I guess the 4th benefit is anti-inflammatory. So melanotan is quite a long hormone that's similar to a peptide that you create naturally in your body called alpha MSH, as I mentioned earlier. So melanotan is similar. So a piece of melanotan is also sold separately as another product called KPV. So peptides are chains of amino acids. So a little portion of that chain is sold separately as KPV, and that's sold as an anti-inflammatory peptide. I'm not a fan of that either. I would say save your money and get TB4, TB500 instead. And another portion of it is sold separately called PT141. And this is actually being licensed as a drug by the FDA in America for, I can't remember what they call it, like female, doesn't want to have sex syndrome. I don't know what they call it. I can't remember. But a lack of sex drive in women. They came up with some name for it, separate for if men have it. So they sold it for women. Now, I think it hasn't become hugely successful because you've got to inject yourself. And most people don't want to inject themselves. So that's the only way PT141 works. It's also the only way melanotan works. So it has that anti-inflammatory compound. It has this sex drive boosting compound, and it has this tanning part to it, and it reduces appetite. So what's not to love? Well, to me, the thing was not to love was the reduction in appetite. And it made me, it did more than just reduce my appetite. It made me nauseous. I really did not like it. I believe I already have a tendency to overproduce alpha MSH. Upstream from alpha MSH is ACTH, which is like this primary stress signaler. So to me, the reason why I don't like it and don't generally recommend it is because it's a stress chemical. Now, the exception to that would be if you need more stress chemicals. Some people do. Some people genetically, naturally overproduce stress chemicals. Some people genetically, naturally underproduce stress chemicals. If you find it really hard to be motivated and get going, not because you're exhausted, just because whatever, then you may be someone who's low in stress chemicals. And then something like melanotan may well be good for you. If you're that type of person, you also tend to overeat. and you tend to have a lower sex drive. But if you're a kind of person who tends to have a high stress drive, who tends to have not a huge appetite, who tends to, be quite a stressy person, then I would not recommend Melanotan. So it really depends on what kind of type you are.
Yeah, no, I know, from their previous episodes talking about metabolism, especially if you want to optimize and have a lot of energy and move through life very well, then reducing appetite, and, that's just going to mess with your mitochondrial function, your thyroid, everything. So yeah, that doesn't sound like a good one to take.
Thank you, Chrissy. Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. That's absolutely true. So even in general, I don't think reducing appetite is a good idea for the reason you just said, because it slows down metabolism. But yeah, there are exceptions. There are like that type of person who's just always hungry, always eating, quite sluggish, and that person maybe would benefit from this. I don't want to say it's universally not good, but it's certainly not one of my favorites.